Hey, I'm JRLA, and I'd like to welcome you back to the Banking on Digital Growth podcast. I want to start with a simple question. Who is your website really built for? Is it built for the consumer, or is it built for an AI agent acting on a consumer's behalf, acting on a prospective member or an account holder's behalf? You see, we're entering a new era where websites are no longer just digital brochures for humans. They're becoming interactive hubs for agents like ChatGPT and Perplexity. And these agents, these AI agents, they don't browse, they query, they search, they don't read, they transact. And if your website isn't built to speak their language, your financial brand might be invisible in the digital future. That's why joining me for today's conversation is my co-host, Derik Krauss. And today, we're going to explore what it means to reimagine the website, your website, for an AI agent-first world, and why this shift is urgent for financial brands to start thinking about today. But before we dive in, if you want to see whether your website is ready for a world of AI agents, well, my friends over at Metrify can help. So I want you to text me, 832-240-1922. Text me and I'll send you their free website benchmark assessment to help you quickly see if your website is built for humans, machines, AI agents, or perhaps even neither. Let's get into today's show. Derik, so your recent LinkedIn post on, and you corrected me on how to say this word. I was like, Agentic, and you're like, no, it's Agentic. Agentic. I'm even learning with this whole, because things are changing so fast right now. And shout out to Bradley Blue, because I know he just recently posted something. He's feeling this. I mean, he's been in financial services in the digital space himself as long as I can remember. We've kind of grown up together. It's like he's like, is it just me, or am I feeling a little overwhelmed? Like, it's just things are happening fast. So let's talk not Agentic web.
Yeah.
What inspired you to write this post? Because it got a lot of comments. It got a lot of engagement. It got a lot of back and forth. What was your inspiration to start surfacing this narrative here?
Yeah. And I would add too, a lot of people were commenting with really thoughtful comments, not just like, hey, that's interesting or that's cool, but like a lot of dialogue. And I think it's because a lot of people can see that this is the next huge incoming wave for the internet. It's like the biggest thing for the internet since the internet. Because so you think about it, if you use ChatGPT, that's the biggest one, the most popular one. What do you use? Do you like ChatGPT?
I'm ChatGPT. I mean,
okay.
We've got Google Gemini, but sure. I still end up diverging back to ChatGPT, and I don't know why. I don't know if it's a behavior thing. I don't know if it's because I was using ChatGPT first, and then it's interesting when you think about behaviors.
Yeah, I haven't really used Gemini either. I've used primarily ChatGPT. I've used Perplexity a little bit. I use. I'm not a big X guy, but I used Grok for the first time yesterday as a consumer. I've actually used their API before I used their consumer version, which is kind of funny. But
right.
So anyway, you think about your use of ChatGPT. When you go and search for something, like earlier this year, I was looking for a new pair of basketball shoes because I was like, hey, ChatGPT, I'm getting old and my knees hurt when I play basketball. So help me find some shoes that are more cushy that will make me not be in pain when I'm playing. So,
right.
You ask it a question like that, and very frequently you'll see it says searching the web. So what it's doing right there is it's going out to websites on your behalf. It's reading, it's searching for websites and even reading certain pages that are relevant for your prompt and bringing back the information within the ChatGPT interface. So essentially what's happening is through the whole history of the internet up to this point, websites have been primarily used by humans. And I say primarily because there have been crawlers and like robots that go and crawl for information on websites for a long time now. But now, but usually those bots or those crawlers, they're put out by organizations or businesses that have an interest in doing that for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
But now what we're seeing is anyone in the world can download ChatGPT or insert other LLM, and everyone's got this AI. Excuse me. Everyone's got this AI agent now that they can send out to websites to get information for them. So it's no longer just humans that are using websites. It's AI agents that are using websites on the behalf of their humans and bringing back information. And we'll unpack this more as we talk about it, but that has a potential to fundamentally change a lot of things about the internet. So there's not a broadly accepted name for it yet, but many people are starting to call it the agentic web.
Not agentic.
Not agentic, but
agentic. See, it's and I think it's interesting as you're talking about this behavior. I even mentioned behavior before. You asked me what agent I was using.
Yeah.
I was recently facilitating a team alignment workshop, and I was taking people through this narrative I wrote about in Banking on Change from 94 to 2024, because Banking on Change has been published now 1 year. And so we had to stop that, obviously, for publishing. But it's like, if we kept going, and then it's like, oh my gosh, there's a true accelerant. And I bring these into some of my team alignment workshops and some of my keynotes. Yeah, technology has changed the way we shop, the way we buy. It's changed the competitive landscape. But I think what I'm most interested in or observing as a digital anthropologist is the behavior shifts that are happening because of this. And the behavior shifts, what's driving a behavior shift is a shift in belief systems at the most core, because our behaviors are driven from some sort of belief. And I guess when you think about a financial brand website, historically, what's the belief that was driving the development of a financial brand website?
Fundamentally, I think it's been people want to use websites to interact with financial brands, so we better have one. That's like absolute minimum, right? Mm-hmm. And then a step above that, those that are really more on top of their game, they realize that their website is their number one marketing tool. It's the most important tool that they have for their marketing, and so they want to invest in and make it the best it can be. But at a minimum, I think even when I talk to financial institutions today, where they're really not at the level they should be with their website, at a minimum, they know that their members and potential members want them to have a website. Right. That's the most fundamental thing.
The reason I'm asking, because once again, if you think from like an anthropological perspective, 94, it was May 18th. So July 5th, 1994 was the day that Bezos would transform how we shop and buy. It's the launch of Amazon, July 5th, 1994. May 18th, 1995 is the day that Wells Fargo would begin to transform the way that we bank with the launch of online banking. Mm-hmm. But then, if you think about like, as financial brand websites came online, quote unquote, I go back to that time period. And literally, I remember building a website back 2002. It was one of my very first credit union websites. And I was given brochures from the branch.
Yeah. And they recreate this on the web.
They're like, just bring these. Yeah. And so that's where the idea of you think about like a brochure website.
Yeah.
They were called that.
Yeah, because they were literally recreating them from a brochure.
But even now in 2025 and beyond, like the idea of a brochure site, I think still permeates the industry. We haven't even gotten to the point of thinking about websites as digital retail, as an e-commerce conduit.
Yeah.
So that mindset, that belief is already past its prime. And now we've got agentic web coming online. And so that's going to be a huge exponential leap of perhaps bypassing the perspective of not just a digital, retail or e-commerce as a financial brand. What's this next iteration going to look like when it comes to the agentic web, and what belief systems need to change internally to build these new agentic web friendly websites to begin with?
Yeah. Okay. There's a lot to unpack there.
There's a lot to unpack.
Yeah.
We're talking 30 years.
So, all right, first, what is fundamentally changing? So going back to what we were talking about a few minutes ago, what's fundamentally changing is that it's no longer just humans visiting and using websites. It's AI using websites on behalf of humans. They still bring the information or the potential for action. We need to talk
Perplexity.
Yes. So Perplexity, they recently released their Shop Like a Pro feature.
Yep.
And they partnered with Shopify, which is really smart because now they've got, I don't know how many Shopify sites there are, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions, very large number of e-commerce sites that you can now search through Perplexity and make purchases without ever leaving Perplexity.
5.7 million active Shopify stores worldwide.
There we go. Yeah, crazy. So now there are 5.7 million e-commerce stores that you can buy from in an AI interface where you can talk to AI about what you're looking for. It can help you filter and sort through it. And then once you've found what you're looking for, you can make the purchase there without ever leaving. So that's where all of this is headed, is that there are still going to be some experiences where it makes sense for a human to go to the website. Think of like some obvious ones like gaming. If you're playing an online game, it doesn't always happen through a website, but sometimes kids play like .io games. Well, the point of that is to experience it. You're not going to have the AI go play a game for you most of the time. So there's still going to be these experiences where it makes sense for a human to go and use the website themselves. But if you're just exchanging information, or if it's just a transaction, why would you go do it yourself when that requires calories, some amount of effort to go and process the information yourself, figure out what to do? AI can do that for you without ever leaving the LLM interface.
So, and this is where I want to pause, because I already hear it, and perhaps it's just me, and I'm having to challenge my own cognitive bias with this, because, and I've heard this in executive boardrooms. Well, I wouldn't do it that way. I'm just going to go to Google and search. And I'm like, this reminds me of Russ Solomon, who was the founder of Tower Records. And he's on YouTube. It's a video, and we've done a podcast on this in the past, and we pulled this clip from him. In his own words, he said, basically, Tower Records went bankrupt because they didn't listen to the kids. I'm quoting, "We didn't listen to the kids." We're going to have to be mindful of our own bias and belief, because while you might not be doing this yet, this is the shift of human behavior that I've been observing now. And this is the next real big leap of the way that we're going to shift how we shop and how we buy. And it might not start with financial services. It might just start with, once again, like Shopify integration. So 5.7 million stores.
Yeah. Well, I think it's happening across every industry, but some industries it'll be easier to integrate it with AI because it's easier to integrate a checkout experience from an e-commerce than it is to integrate a loan application. But that'll happen too. It's just a matter of time. But yeah, talking about behavior, tell me what you've seen. I mean, for me, this is just anecdotal, but in my experience, I have met some people my age and younger that haven't used ChatGPT. Like my brother, he's 25. I'm like, hey, Seth, have you used ChatGPT? It's awesome. And he's like, no, I haven't used it yet. I'm like, why? You haven't used it? What do you mean you haven't used it? You need to go, like, it's crazy. Go check it out. So, there's certainly, and he's about a little bit more than 10 years younger than me. So I think probably across every age group, there are some people that haven't adopted it yet. But on the other hand, like, I don't know if I think I've asked my parents, have you used it? Maybe my dad has a little bit. My father-in-law, I'm like, have you used it? He hasn't used it. So there could still be a, thing going on where just in general, older generations don't usually adopt the newest technology as quickly as younger generations. But I mean, when you think about how ChatGPT is the fastest adopted app ever.
Yeah, 0 to 100 million users in 2 months.
Yeah, it's insane. This was a few weeks ago. I heard, and I should probably go verify this, but I'm pretty sure they were up to 800 million weekly users as of a few weeks ago, which is crazy.
I want to pause on that point because I think it's very hard to perceive the speed of adoption that we're seeing here, unless we contextualize it. And this is something that I do bring up in some of my keynotes and team alignment workshops. Uber. It took Uber 70 months or 5 years and 10 months to go from 0 to 100 million users. Mm-hmm. And I think you have to think about like Uber came out, it was 2009. And what happened in 2007? Steve Jobs launches the iPhone. So you have this capability you're building up on top of. It's almost like if you think about go back to the 1800s when it comes to transportation communication, because they were truly intersected. You had railroad tracks being laid across the United States, going through towns. So that would increase the speed of transportation. Next to the railroad tracks went up the telegraph lines. Mm-hmm. So that increased the speed of communication. Then the telegraph line became the telephone. So another leap in capability. Then you have trains. Now you have automobiles. So increase of speed once again of transportation. And also more like trains would take many people, but the automobile gave you more autonomy now. Mm-hmm. So almost essentially kind of like each one of us has our own little agent being built around our own activity with it. And then you go from telephone to radio to TV signals, so forth and so on. Same thing, you go from train to car to airplane. So speeds are continuously increasing. And then now here we are, computing power, the microchip, 94, the internet reaches the mass consciousness of humanity. When you think about all of this, then you get the iPhone, mobile capability, and now you add this AI layer on top of it. That's why I say like the exponentiality. So come back, Uber, 70 months, Telegram, 61 months to go from 0 to 100 million, Spotify, 55 months, Pinterest, 41 months, Instagram, 30 months, TikTok, 9 months, which was Musical.ly, to go from 0 to 100 million users. Back to your point, ChatGPT, 2 months. Why is that? It's such a kind of a mind-blowing activity. And then you're talking about agentic web coming into play. How are you, and you and I have had some conversations, how are you keeping up with this pace of change yourself?
I don't know if anyone's keeping up with it. I think a lot of people are trying to keep up with it, and that, I would certainly put us in that category. So what's funny is we're working with AI related things every day now. And
Mm-hmm.
it was just over the weekend. So we've been working on a tool specific to what we're talking about right now, which is to track AI visibility for a brand, how
Mm-hmm.
often your brand is showing up in AI responses.
Yeah.
And we've been working on that solidly now. But then over the weekend, my business partner and I, Ryan Harmon, I was talking with Harmon about some capabilities that we wanted to add to that. And he was like, "Oh, hey, I didn't know this, but there's a brand new API that came out from OpenAI." And I just hadn't seen that it happened. It has all these new capabilities. So there's just such rapid progression where, I mean, I think for us, the way that we are, I think we're doing a pretty good job of keeping up with it. I don't think anyone can be fully on top of everything just because there's so much going on. But
Mm-hmm.
I think the key for us has been we've just, and this is probably just a cultural thing for our company or for us, is we always want to be doing the cutting edge thing. And I think we've also realized, well, you're either when a massive innovation like AI comes along, it's going to cause all sorts of disruption in markets. And you can either be the disruptor or the disrupted. And we never want to be the disrupted. We always want to be the disruptor. I think it's really mostly a mindset thing. And then I guess you got to carve out time to focus on
Mm-hmm.
it. What about you guys?
Well, I mean, it's definitely it's a day-to-day use, and that's why I wanted to bring this up, because our perspective perhaps is going to be different than someone who is just dabbling with it. It is, I would say, it is definitely becoming a co-creation capability, and it is increasing our ability to create. I have even been working on creating for myself personally custom GPTs that have very
Nice.
specific functions
Yeah.
tied to the business, and training them.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, it's JR, and I just want to thank you for taking a few minutes out of your day to share time with Derik and I. If you are wondering how to ready your website for the world of AI agents for this shift, text me right now, 832-240-1922. That's because I want to send you Metrify's free website benchmark assessment in just a few minutes. You're going to know exactly where to focus, how to get ahead in a world full of AI agents, which is where I want to flip this back to the agentic web. How is this going to shift, or what does this mean when it comes to shifting the most important parts of business and commerce, which is trust?
Mm-hmm.
You know, we do business with, there's a trust component. I do believe trust is a currency. Because if there's no trust, there's no transaction. But I also think transactions become commoditized, which is where I'm more interested in transformative types of activities than transactional. But what does this mean, this agentic web mean when it comes to the transaction, the trust within financial services, particularly for buying journeys? And why you're sharing that, I want to loop back around of what we are starting to measure the engagement of AI capabilities within financial brands. But what's your take on the trust side?
I mean, I think a lot of the trust components are going to stay the same personally. I think just the way that a brand is going to be presented and delivered is going to come through a different medium. And there are going to be some things, and I want to talk about this a little bit more, like what we know of as a website today is not the same thing in the agentic web. But I think the things that lead to trust, like, you know, do you personally know them? Do you like them? Do they have good reviews? Do they have good case studies? Does their brand seem legitimate? Like they can, what they have is what I need. I think a lot of those credibility signals are going to be the same.
How do you get to personally know a brand? And that's a fascinating point, because you're talking about brand and getting to know and know, like, trust. But if the response is being served up in an AI agent that is going out and looking for the quote unquote the best deal, and that could be rate, if you think about pricing, how does know, like, trust play into that type of a transactional experience?
Well, I'll go back to my example that I was talking about before with buying basketball shoes.
Yeah.
I ended up buying some basketball shoes based on the conversation that I had with ChatGPT. I bought some LeBrons from Nike because I already had trust in the Nike brand, and ChatGPT was sourcing reviews and information about those shoes, giving me details to say, these are really cushiony for your old knees. And they're very well reviewed, and it gave me comparisons, like I could get a table of how they stacked up against other shoes. It was like, I was like, what about the Currys from Under Armour? And it was like, I mean, they're good shoes, but they don't really have the cushion that you're looking for. So there's several factors going on there, many of them the same as what we have today, but it was like, what created the trust for me is, I believe that ChatGPT, it wasn't trying to, like, its motive was not to, it doesn't have a deal with Nike versus Under Armour. I could trust it to give me an objective opinion, but somehow it sourced the information to know that these ones are more cushy, these ones are more lightweight, right? So that could have been the product based on product information that they published, or it could have been based on reviews. So I think a lot of those factors are, because you could get that same sort of information right now by going to Amazon, but you'd probably have to search for it more.
You'd have to search for it, and you use a lot more calories, back to your point, calories being energy. And you think about cognitive load. It's just fascinating to hear you talk through that response, because I think about the role that I think brand will have an ever increasing role in regards to influencing buying behavior, because even your memory recall, you're like the LeBrons, like in Nike, like there was already some sort of brand affinity, trust, emotive tie to that.
Sure.
That you increased your speed. You didn't use your energy, your calories on the research, because why would you? Because you want to be efficient with that, because there's other things you can do. And that's where I'm seeing some of this. I want to come back to, what does this shift look like, practically speaking, to build a website for humans and AI agents. But first, I pulled up some data here, because we were talking about just our own behavior and our own use. But what are we also seeing as a we'll just say a benchmark within the industry of AI use when it comes to using these tools, collaboration platforms for day-to-day task activities? It's early within our own team alignment workshops, but we are starting to survey this data.
Awesome.
And you almost see a traditional adoption curve, meaning that we have 33% responses that are using it 1 to 5 times a day, meaning that I don't really think about using AI that often. 6 to 10 responded that they're using AI daily in their workflows. So 6 to 10 times per day. That was another 33%. 10+% are using AI. 20% are using AI 10 plus times per day, meaning they feel like AI is their teammate. And then 12.5% are not using, or they never have used AI tools or platforms. So it's a very...
What was that last percent?
12.5%.
I've never used it.
Correct.
Interesting.
Now, I will tell you, anecdotally, going to do keynote speeches at different events and conferences, based upon who's in the audience, that never have used or rarely used number can be as high as 80, 85%.
Really?
Yes.
Crazy.
It is. And so that's where I think perspective comes back into play. And this is like 1994 over again, but it's now with, you have the internet layer, you have the mobile layer, and then now you have the artificial intelligence layer. What does it mean to optimize a website? Because you're using some of this, you're in your own research developing this new capability to optimize a website for both humans as well as now AI agents.
Yeah, I should start by saying I think right now you do have to think about both, but in the future, I'm not sure if that'll be the case. In the future, just AI compatible websites may be the primary, and websites for humans, you may only have that experience if it's really necessary. So what does it look like? Well, think about this. You've built a lot of websites in your day, right?
Yeah.
I've built a lot of websites. And when I say a lot, like for context, we probably built like, I don't know, 60 websites for financial institutions.
A couple hundred.
Yeah. So a lot of websites here.
Mm-hmm.
And in your experience with building websites, how much of that time and effort has gone into things like the look and the feel and the visual layout of the page versus other aspects of website development?
That's where the biggest battles are fought and won.
Yes.
Or fought and lost, on what side you're on.
Yeah.
It's where the biggest amount of energy is invested. And I've always been one to try to steer people away, because for example, content, calls to action, the other elements, because I think, as you and I have talked about before in previous conversations, the visual, it's all in the eye of the beholder at that point.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, people make judgments about a brand based on the visual appeal of their website. And so it's not that it's not important. It's just, if you think about how humans consume websites, versus how AI consumes websites. For humans, I mean, if you go and look at, like, anyone can do this. If you're listening and you're in front of a computer, go to a website, right click and open view page source. Correct. And you'll get this giant page of code, and you'll probably have to scroll a bit before you get to the actual body of it. But then when you're looking at the body of it, you'll probably see like divs within divs within divs, these div elements. Then you'll see all of these CSS styles. So you've got all of that is made for humans to be able to see a website in a way that humans can visually process it, because we're very visual beings, right? So, and if something is unorganized, or if it's just a whole bunch of text, that can be hard for us to, like, parse quickly and make sense of quickly. But for AI does not care about CSS styles or colors or really or interactivity. Like, it doesn't, when you hover over a button, humans like to see a visual feedback that you're hovering on this button, but AI doesn't need any of those things. In fact, those things can get in the way of it understanding the content. What AI cares about is good information that's simple, that's well structured, and there are things that can make a page more machine readable, easier for AI to understand, that are different from how you would make it easy for a human to understand. So a fundamental shift that's going to happen is as people are using AI to visit websites for them, what becomes more important is the quality of your information, not how it's structured and visually looks.
I can't help but think of two words, three: content, context, and the clarity that both provide to, first and foremost, the AI agent, which now I'm having this really unsettling thought from the movie The Matrix, where Agent Smith says, never send a human to do an agent's job.
Oh,
I don't know
funny.
I don't know where that's coming from, but no, it's an interesting, because you're right. The way that we perceive information visually, which you think about the web, and you think about like the neuroscience that the human mind can process visual images 60,000 times faster than the written word. So therefore you get into the ideas of UX, user experience, UI, user interface, GUI, graphical user interface, like all of that. But then if you think about how an AI agent is now parsing that information, it's a whole different way of operating.
Yeah. Yeah. And think about this. You and I have already talked about the disruption that's happening with financial institutions. And one of their key problems is that their products are commodities.
That's like what I'm trying to like wrap my, it's like when you're now, if you're competing on price or product features.
Yeah. So if you think about someone's looking for an auto loan, I think about my own experience in the past when I needed to get an auto loan. I remember looking at a handful of different financial institutions, but at some point it's like, well, I got to choose one. I can't be looking at them forever. But with AI, with a single prompt, you could say, go find me the lowest auto loan rate in this area, or even nationwide, and it will go and find it and bring back the information. And if that's all you have is your rate, you may have, even like pre-AI, even with the internet, you may have been able to rely on the fact that people only had time to look at so many different rates and term combinations before they just had to make a choice and move forward. But now where AI can go and instantly find your rates and terms and bring those back, if that's all you have to go off of, and you're not the Walmart with always having the lowest price, lowest rate, I think you're even in more trouble than before.
This is, we're in the early innings of this whole new ball game. Citibank, for example, released a PDF on this, and they described this whole era as the do-it-for-me economy.
Mm-hmm.
So as agents take on more of the doing, what principles should guide the development of, and I'll still use my old past framing because I don't have anything to frame it against for the future, but to build a website that sells. But as you mentioned, the web within the next 5 years could look vastly different than any of us can perceive at this moment in time. Just like if it was 1994 and you were saying, okay, well, within 15 years, by 2009, you would be calling a car that's not a cab to come and pick you up and take you from point A to point B. Or in 1994, by 2009, you would be staying at someone's house and sleeping in their bed instead of at a hotel.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy how fast those changes happen.
That was 15 years. And now, like, we're thinking 3 to 5 years with this shift. What principles should begin guiding some of this thinking for an agent-first web?
Yeah, I think a lot of the principles stay the same. So I think for a business, probably first principle is why would someone choose to buy from you or sign up with you versus someone else? You have to have a compelling answer to that. And AI doesn't change that. You still, if you fundamentally have something better or different than what someone else can offer, then when you're sending out AI to go find information for you, it's still going to bring back information about your company versus others. And if yours stands out, again, going back to my example, I'm looking for cushy shoes for my old knees. The LeBrons had them, the Currys didn't. So I chose the LeBron, and I compared probably like 10 different shoes from multiple different brands, and ChatGPT just made it easier to do that. So I think that's fundamental. And you've got that good information about your brand has to be out there, available for the LLMs to find. It's got to be visible to them. If it's invisible, then you won't be found. Just like if you couldn't be found in a Google search, then you were invisible as far as that Google search was concerned. So I think the progression here of what we're going to see is, first, you need to be found. You've got to have AI visibility, which is why we started by building that tracking. And then you've got to make sure that everything for your brand, like, you need to have, at least initially, an agentic version, an AI compatible version of your website. Those really go hand in hand. As your content's got to.
I know it's a bit tactical, but are we talking schema there?
Schema, like probably clean HTML for LLMs to read. And there's something called an LLMs.txt file. It's kind of like a robots.txt file or like a XML sitemap. So that's where the LLMs would go to find all of your information. So yeah, you got to be visible. Your content's got to be LLM compatible. And those kind of go hand in hand. And the next big thing after that is AI being able to take actions for you. So you'd say, go find me the best auto loan rate, or go find me the best auto loan. It's going to come back with different options for you to choose from. You're going to choose to dig into one of them, and then it's going to be, would you like to apply for this auto loan right now? And you say yes, and then it does the application for you.
I can't help but think about everything that I've learned over the last decade. And I think about some of the research that we have done, some of the primary, some of the secondary research coming out of Google. Google found that when it came to opening a deposit account, a consumer would use 8 to 10 sources of information on average to make a financial buying decision. That would typically take anywhere between 2 to 3 months. How all of that has the potential to be compressed now.
Yeah, 2 to 3 minutes.
Correct. And then you take the action on top of that. Wow. And I understand why people are feeling a little overwhelmed, and perhaps even a little tired. But I think mastering your mind and your mindset is such a key part of this journey, because otherwise it's like a wave. You're just going to get sucked under. And having gone surfing in tropical storm conditions out of Galveston Bay in Texas, it's not a great place to be. Sometimes
gonna have to hear more about that sometime.
Yeah, we'll talk about that on another conversation. But I want to wrap up with this. What are you watching in this space just to be aware of? And maybe what's the one thing that someone who is watching or listening can do now just to begin to prepare the mind and the mindset and maybe even take an action off of? I think there's one based upon what you just shared with me, if I'm going to share this back, but I wanted to get your take on this as we wrap up.
Yeah, I mean, a good place to start is to start tracking your visibility in AI. If someone asks a question like, I'm in Salt Lake City area. Where in Salt Lake City can I get the best business checking account? Or where can I get the best business loan? That's a prompt that people are sending over to AI, and AI is coming back with some sort of response. So the question is your financial institution showing up in that response? And that's a good place to start, to figure out how often are you showing up and start to optimize for that. Find out how, if you're not showing up in that response, how do you show up in that response? So we built a tool for that. So if someone wanted to text me and try that, 661-979-9395. That's my phone number. And that's something that you could start to do right now.
As we wrap up today, if you are ready to build a website that stands out for both humans as well as the machines, as well as the AI agents, text me right now, 832-240-1922. That's because I want to send you a free website benchmark assessment from our friends over at Metrify. This assessment is the first step to take to future-proof your website, to future-proof your financial brand in the age of AI.